Okay. Don't really know, just don't really know where to start. So some stuff happened, as you can see. I think I told you guys that we had a issue with one of the lifters. Noticed that when I was, opening everything up and found out I had a damaged lifter. Then, I don't know if I got into it, letting you guys know that we had ordered a set of cylinder heads from a reputable company. I'm not going to bash anybody or anything like that, but I'll just say that they're in the southern part of the U.S., very big company, and I ordered a set of cylinder heads, which I think I might have even said all this, but I don't know. But I'm going to recap regardless because there's just a lot of stuff happened. So, ordered a set of cylinder heads, said they were in stock, not in stock. 6 weeks lead time. And I'm like, nope, not waiting 6 weeks. So, cancel the order, and somehow they kept $200 out of my money. Don't really know where that came from. Kept $200 for shipping and handling or restocking fee on cylinder heads they didn't even have to ship out. So I'm kind of confused on that. But anyway, had to order canceled that order, had to order another set of cylinder heads. So I was basically out like $6,000 before I even got my money back. So that was pretty sweet. Michigan Motorsports, got cylinder heads. Filmed the intro. Everything was good, but it wasn't good. So went to start doing everything after getting the lifter in and all that stuff. Went to start doing, and I didn't have my ARP rocker arm studs. So I was like, don't know what happened with those because I put those on order. Well, evidently, I didn't. So I didn't want to use my OEM, rocker bolts. I wanted to use my ARP stuff. The motor's got ARP everything in it, so I wanted to stick with that. And, the valve train on these motors take a lot of damage. I mean, not literal damage, but a lot of abuse. So not going to take any chances. Was able to use the OEM bolts to get I don't know if this light's like making a glare or not, because like the intro video was jacked. Like I look like I'm got rays of sunshine coming down on me. But anyway, was able to use the OEM bolts to verify my push rod length. So what I'm going to do now is be able to show you guys. I don't have my little fancy mic on here and everything, so the sound quality might be doo-doo. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to kind of piece things together, start with the crank damper and finding, your top dead center to verify timing, blah, blah, blah. And then do the, how to verify and check for proper push rod length, setting preload, all that fun stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with, I guess I'll go ahead and flip the camera around instead of clipping the video. And I'm going to start with putting on your Husker Du there that spins and does things. So when I went to put this on, I went ahead and also realized, I forgot to even bring that all up. So because of my turbo drains, which not going to be using this one, so I just capped it. The ICT billet dual or twin turbo front timing cover is this over here. I could not use I had a Mighty Mouse, whatchamacallit, thingy, whatever this is, damper pointer. So I'm out of it. I don't even care. Wouldn't work because could not get it to clear the fitting and the drain and everything, and it just wasn't going to happen. So went to Motion Raceworks and ordered theirs, and then I just cut it. So I cut it and got that secured where it's spaced enough away from the crank damper, and it's secure. It's not going to go anywhere. And I like it. It's adjustable here. Comes out, and it is spaced for the ATI crank damper. and I ended up making it work. So that turned out pretty good. So had to wait on this because I didn't want to start this process and use a coat hanger or like whatever. I wanted to, this is going to stay on the motor, and I used it to get my true top dead center mark on my crank damper, which is that line right there. So I rotated the motor to check for my push rod length and all that stuff. So my true top dead center mark is here, and it is a couple degrees off of, and I can rotate this by hand, but I just don't feel like doing that right now. So, and I'm holding the camera. But my actual top dead center, like timing on my pulley is a few degrees off of my true, and I really don't even care. These lines right here mean nothing to me. I do everything with the standalone, as you guys will know. Anybody that's done this knows that you're doing this to get proper firing angle so that you know that your timing is true from your motor to your ECU. So that's all I care about. Now what I will tell you is there's a couple different ways. So we'll go ahead and get into how you are going to find your true top dead center, blah, 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 can't even talk, to verify your timing whenever you put the motor in the car, put the standalone ECU and everything on. So there's a couple different ways you can do this. I did it with no cylinder heads on. So with no cylinder heads on, obviously it's extremely easy to rotate the motor over, and you just get your cylinder one at the very top of the bore. And you can rotate it over, and it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. You get it where you rotate it over clockwise until the piston's in the top of the bore. Make a little line on your damper. Rotate the motor counterclockwise. Whenever that piston is at the top of the bore, make another line, like a little line. So you have a line that you did clockwise, a small little line counterclockwise, and directly between those two lines, which is what this one was your true top dead center on the motor. Now, the reason I say that doesn't have to be perfect is the lines can be they can be farther apart or whatever. It doesn't have to be the small lines you're making in the beginning do not have to be dead on, because the line that is in the middle is going to be your true top dead center. So I did it with no cylinder heads. I could literally just look at that piston and see where it was. Now, if you are doing it with a long block, like the cylinder heads on, and you can't, and let's say you have which probably should have taken the valve cover off, but obviously you guys know what's under the valve cover is your rocker arms. So whenever I take these off, now when you go to check it as a long block, you need to, I say need, right? But you can use your piston stop tool, which is one right here. And what this does is it threads, and this section right here, which I'm trying to do this with one hand, this section right here, you can see, threads in and out of this section here. So this just spins and rotates in, and that way this section that's right here can go in and out. This is your the same thread and everything, like as your threads in to where your spark plug is at. And when you can't, and you have your rockers busted loose, loosened, where you know that the springs are keeping the valves all the way up and they're not down in where this could hit your valve. Because if you don't do that, there's a little spot on here. Where's it at? Right there. See a little shiny spot right there? And I knew that I kind of touched the valve and I had to redo it. So the risk of doing this without having those rockers loose is you can be on a valve and think that you're on the top of the piston and you're not. Then you get an improper reading, and then you could be potentially be picking up parts, or you damage a valve and it doesn't seat properly. And then obviously, like I said, you have to get a true measurement of this, because if you do this wrong, you're going to cause problems with the timing on your car. You're not going to know what it's actually doing. And that's how you just blow stuff up, or it's running like crap and you can't figure out why it's not making power or whatever. So now that's what you can do if you don't loosen the rockers. But you can get past, the shorter that this is, the shorter this section is, you can go in past the valve. Now, obviously, the lines are going to be very close together when you're making your marks, but you can use this tool. I'm rambling on, but you can use this tool. Rotate the motor over clockwise, make your line. Rotate the motor counterclockwise and make a line. And then the line in between is your true top dead center. So, like I said, they also make a little dial indicator where you can have one just like this that threads into, it uses a spark plug fitting like this, and it threads into, and it's longer than this, and it threads into the spark plug hole. And whenever you rotate the motor over, you just watch that dial indicator, your little gauge, and you can see when that is at its top point, make your line and rotate the other way, and same thing. So there's a bunch of different ways you can do it. I did it with the cylinder head off. It was just easy. I was in the process of, and I could just literally look at it and say, okay, I know that it's top dead center. I know that piston's at the top of the bore. So now, when you go and make your line on your damper, once you've verified that you know where true top dead center is at, when you put the motor in the car and everything's back together and you fire the motor up, that is like the first thing that you need to do. And it may run okay. It could run like crap. But the first thing that you need to do is you need to, when you go Holley, Fuel Tech, MS3 Pro, doesn't matter. When you go in and you go to verify, and it's in Mega Squirt, MS3 Pro, it is called firing angle. And you need to go in and verify timing and get your firing angle correct by taking your timing light, which I have right there, buried up under my stuff, and this clamps right here, this piece right here, clamps onto the spark plug wire for cylinder 1. And you take your laptop and you set a fixed timing for, let's just say I use 20 degrees, right? So when I set it for fixed timing at 20 degrees and this motor is firing, and that light is flashing at the same speed that the wire is reading the spark, right? So that thing is going to be flashing, and I'm looking down at the top of my damper, and I'll kind of be at this angle a little bit because I'm actually going to need to be able to see. I did mark, so these lines right here are white. I mark them right here, I mark them red. So what I'm doing is when this motor is running, I'm looking down in line with my damper pointer to see if when that light flashes, at the very time that light flashes, that line needs to be lined up with this pointer. So if it is not, you need to, if it's, I believe if it's behind your pointer that you need to, and it might be the other way around. It's been a while since I've done it, but nonetheless, if it is behind the pointer, I believe you have to add a few degrees. If it's in front of the pointer, because the way the motor rotates, if it's in front of the pointer, you need to take a few degrees out and get that line. The bottom line is, whether it's vice versa, you got to add, subtract, whatever. On this damper, if I could rotate it over by hand with one hand, I would. On the damper, it actually tells you which way is plus or minus from top dead center. So you would go off of that and you would know to take a few degrees out or add a few degrees. Now, once this pointer, and it is, like I said, hooked up to your spark plug for cylinder 1, and you have it set to your fixed timing, when that thing is flashing, and you do get the pointer and the line lined up, at that point you need to rev your motor at the throttle body, or if you don't have a cable throttle body, get somebody in the car and rev the car up. And when the car is revving, make sure that line does not drift. If that line drifts some and it ends up being behind or in front of, you need to do the same thing. Do a half a degree, small increments at a time, to make sure that when you're revving that motor, and it is going to be running all out I mean, you're not obviously going to freaking redline the motor, but whenever you're revving it up, that line should not float away from that damper pointer. So once you've done that, then you know that this motor and ECU and everything are running in sync, and what the motor is doing, what the ECU is doing, is exactly what the motor is doing, and you've verified your timing, and you know that your firing angle is correct. That way, when you go to make a pass, you're not 5 degrees retard or advance, and the thing is running like crap, or you're picking up pieces. So this step is extremely important. So like I said, when you get the motor in the car and you start anything, you need to get like a base map in the car or whatever. If you're starting from scratch and the engine doesn't even run, then, or you don't have a tune file or anything for it, obviously that's the first thing you need to do. But once you actually have the motor running and idling and everything, that very next step is verifying your timing and make sure that that's proper. And you've either done it with no cylinder heads or use a piston stop tool. And remember to take those rockers loose when you do that, your intake and your exhaust in that, for that cylinder. So that way you're not running this piston stop in and you end up doing that and hitting a valve, right? So you want to know that you're on the piston. If you're doing that, you could even do, you could use a little screwdriver trick. Take a screwdriver. I mean, if you guys don't want to do this, and you don't want to do your little gauge, like your dial indicator or whatever, to see where when that thing goes like this, and you're like, okay, when it's at its highest point, it's going to be the farthest, your bigger number. When as soon as it starts to drop, you're like, okay, I know that right there is top dead center. So you can do that with the cylinder heads on, off, however you want to do it. So what I did was I went ahead and made my marks on my damper and got that squared away. Dampers torqued down properly. My damper pointer is going to stay on there. And do not, once you've verified your timing and everything, if you're ever going to do any other changes to the motor and you're going to have to re-verify timing or whatever you do, like if you start moving your cam and crank sensors and anything like that, I would just recommend do not take that damper pointer off. Just leave it on there. It's going to stay on. Don't touch it. Don't shift it, whatever, because then your reference for what true top dead center is now ruined. So that's going to stay on the motor. Now, the next step was we went ahead and did the cylinder heads. So what I will tell you is when we did the cylinder heads, I verified that what I was talking about in the other video was I had a gasket. I have cylinder heads with large bores, larger than, or they are meant for larger bore motors than what this is stock. I'm deliberately not saying the cubic inch on the motor, which, if anybody has watched previous videos, they probably figured it out. But regardless, a little bit bigger than what it's supposed to be. But I did look at the gasket, and it tells me that the bore size it's supposed to be used for would be okay for these cylinder heads. So I took the gasket and just sized it up on the bottom of the cylinder heads. Everything was fine. And it's fine for the actual block. So we took, what I always end up using on every head gasket is our Permatex copper gasket, your spray gasket. My wife must be getting home because my dog's barking. I use this on on all my head gaskets, my exhaust manifold gaskets, any of the hard gaskets that go on the motor. Obviously if they have a rubber O-ring in it, don't use it. So use this on everything and give it a very, very good, give you a decent top coat, or excuse me, a decent base coat, and then go back over it with a top coat, evenly spray it, try not to get runs, and too much is probably not enough. I'll be honest with you. So then let this stuff dry. And then once it is dried you can put it on when it's still tacky. I just choose not to do that. And this will eat up any the reason I use this, any little imperfections that are on the block and the head mating surface that you can't see, can't feel, you can't even get a fingernail in, or maybe you can't get a fingernail, but you can see it. This is meant to make up the difference in that the gasket, the really small little nooks and crannies, that gasket cannot get. That's what that spray is for. So I do that on on the hard gaskets that I put on the motor. Now, we did our ARP 2000. I was going to do 625, the 625s, which is like the most gangster, I guess 3/8. I can't remember because I know they're not half inch. Whatever the size is below half inch. I guess it's standard's 3/8. We were going to do 625s, but I was worried about warping something or whatever. So we did the clamping force of the ARP 2000 kit is well more than what we would, the amount of power the motor's going to make. I mean, the motor's going to make good power, but that's the kit we chose to go with. And I started, on the cylinder heads, I started 3 studs. Because when you go to put the gaskets on, the gaskets are super tight from head stud to head stud. So when you go putting the gasket on, if you have all your studs started, which I've done before, when you go to start pushing and feeding that gasket down over the studs, a good way to gas your finger open, which I've done before. So from one layer of the head gasket. So I did this time, I just went ahead and did 3 or 4 studs, corner studs, and put my gaskets on, obviously, and put those down, secured those, and then put the cylinder heads down, and then just did my torque sequence. So ARP's torque sequence for this is obviously, like your torque sequence for your bolts, center bolt, lower bolt, next bolt over, and so on and so forth. So you're kind of going until you get here, and then it's kind of wonky. It goes like here, here, and then I think I can't remember now. I think it might be this one, the one over there, whatever. Regardless, follow your torque sequence, and it's for these, it's 25 foot-pounds, 50 foot-pounds, and then 80 foot-pounds. So we went ahead and torqued everything down. And the next step, which is I'll be able to actually film for you guys now, and you'll get to see, the next step is the push rod length. So I verified, and I'll show you guys, I'm going to clip this video, and I'll get set up, and I'm going to put the camera up on my head or my chest to get you guys, so I can use both hands to show you guys how I used my digital caliper tool and my push rod length checker to find the proper push rod length that I will need for this motor. And I'll talk about how, what preload you're targeting and all that fun stuff. So you guys will get to see, we went ahead and we got, these are what we've been waiting on. Got these in, and we got our push rods in. So I'll show you guys how I checked for my proper push rod length, so that way you can use this same sequence whenever you guys are building your motors for the first time, or rebuilding, or whatever the case may be, because your push rod length is going to change build to build. I mean, it changes gasket to gasket. Preload's different on lifters, stock style lifters, Johnson lifters, the preload's different. And we'll get into all that. So you guys will get to see this step. The next step was, putting in the rockers, push rods, and all that stuff. So you'll see how I checked it, and actually get to see me put the push rods and everything in, and show you, how I checked and, all that. So, all right, guys. So that's going to wrap up our finding true top dead center video. Like I said before, there ended up being a kind of a lapse in timing, and when we were putting the motor together and everything, we were originally going to do a whole one video for top dead center and push rod length and preload and everything, but there was just so much information. I didn't want to upload an hour-long video, so this is gonna finish the top dead center video. You guys saw the process of going through and doing all that. Now the next video we're gonna upload and film the intro for and upload is gonna be the push rod setting proper preload for your lifters and that whole deal. So you guys will get to see the removing the valve cover and putting the push rod in and tightening the rocker down, and I go through the whole process of how to check for proper preload and get the push rods you need to have that done the right way. So Once we upload that video, then you guys will be able to see full circle. The one that's going to be after that will be, and I'll give you guys a little sneak peek that there ain't nothing on there. So, I don't want to go in and show, the motor in the bay and what it looks like in the car, but we're really close to, in real time, being able to do, verify the timing on the motor and fire it up and everything like that. So that'll be coming very, very soon as well. So, you guys will be in the loop on it all, and we'll have that next part. I guess technically it would be part 2 of part 2, I guess. So, you guys will see that shortly. So just stay tuned, guys. Like and subscribe. Thank you, guys.